Hello everyone and welcome to Power Hour. I'm Laura Rogers and this is Joelle Jobson here in the corner. And this is a show we do on Wednesdays at 11 Central, doing this for about 8 years. And it used to just be called SharePoint Power Hour, but with Microsoft 365, everything in the cloud, we have SharePoint, we have Power Apps, Power Automate, Teams, all those different apps that you're dealing with in Microsoft 365, and Power Hours geared towards more business users. It's not usually super technical. We're not programmers. So it's all kind of geared towards more of like a power user type level. So we send out a newsletter the day before and everybody gets to vote out of 3 topics. So you all voted this time for the concept in a Power App, when you have a Power App form, of creating a button that does save and new. So in the scenario that you need your end users to be able to fill out a lot of forms and just quickly, rapidly fill out forms all in a row, you want to just, instead of having to click save and then go click this new button and then start all over, just a quick little save and new button in the form itself. So that concept I'm going to really kind of, instead of just showing you that one little thing, I'm going to show you why it does that first, or why kind of the different settings are in such weird places first, because it is the way to get this set up and working. There are several different settings in several different controls in the Power App. So I'm going to demonstrate to you how just a form control works real quick first, but before I do that, I'll show you what the end result looks like. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. And and by the way, we're all in Teams, we're chatting. That's the fun about having, this as a live online session, is that we can, ask questions and chat as we go. So there's a link below this video that you're watching that you can request to join. Okay, so here's a quick little demo that I set up to show you what this functionality is. And I have just a list in SharePoint. It's an issue tracker. It doesn't really matter what the list is, but the idea is that we're going to be able to save versus do save and new. So I'm just going to do a few just test items. So I'm just filling out this form, blah, blah, blah. I click save and it goes away like it always does. And then I fill out another new one. And blah, 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 blah. I'm filling out this form real quick and do save and new. So when I do save and new, it just leaves the form on the screen and it goes ahead and adds the item to the list, but then it's ready for me to start filling out another thing here. So I can fill out this form and do save and new again, and I can do yet another one. And then I can just close this form, of course, at any point, and I can just click save if I don't want to do another new one. So that's the concept that I'm going to be demonstrating. And the way you do this is pretty different depending on if you've got a customized list form like this one versus a standalone Power App. So for pedagogy's sake, before I start digging into all these little weird settings inside of this customized form and Power App, I want to show you just some quick basics about how the form control works. So I've got just a blank screen in a Power App, and I have a SharePoint list that's called a timesheet. And this is an app that I have that I've done several demos on, so it's got kind of a lot going on in it. But I just want to show you this on a blank screen. So a form control, I'll go ahead and just do an edit form. It has a data source, so I'll just make my data source be this timesheet. And then, again, it doesn't really matter what's on the form right now for this demo, but what I'm going to do is show you what it does by default when you are saving a form. So first of all, it needs to know what type of mode that it needs to be in. So if you have a new form, you need to send the new form command. And if you had an edit form, it needs to know which form you're editing, and it needs to know the edit form command. So if I just preview this, it doesn't know what to do yet. I have to do this new form command. So I'm going to create this button that does a new form. And then I have to tell it what form it is, so it's going to help to have a good name for this form. FRM test time is what I'm calling it. So I say new form, FRM test time. And then I'm previewing it, and then that way now at least I know it's a new form, but then someone's got to fill out the form, and then someone needs to be able to submit it. So then I create another button, and all this stuff is built in. Like everything I'm showing you so far is built in when you customize a list form directly in SharePoint. But I want you to understand the mechanics of how they work first. So I'll just do a submit. And then on select, I want it to do the submit form. And I tell it the name of that form. Okay, so now what happens just by default? I've got a new form. I don't think I have any required fields in this list that I'm working in, so I don't see any little asterisks next to any of these. I'll just go click submit and see what happens. So I submit it and it just goes away, and it doesn't know. I didn't tell it to do a new form. I didn't tell it anything else to do. I didn't tell it to navigate anywhere, but I just submitted it. So when you're submitting a form, if you want something else to happen after you submit the form, you would tend to want to put it just right after the submit form, say submit the form and then do something else. But the best practice is to never put it here. Don't ever put what you want to happen next right next to it. And I'll show you why. So I'm going to go ahead and real quick make this description field required. So I'm just going to say required true. And this, of course, if it's required in SharePoint, by default, it will have a little asterisk next to it. But I just manually made it required just in this form. So if I make this required and I say submit, and I'll just navigate somewhere else. I'll just navigate to another screen on this in this app. Okay, I'm filling out a new form. Description is required, but I don't fill it in. I just put some hours in here and fill out some other stuff, but don't fill out the required field, and then I click submit. Look at that. Okay, well, so it makes me, it kind of gives me an error, a sort of vague error up there at the top, and then the error goes away, but it goes ahead and takes me to the other screen. So it did not stop the end user from filling out all the required fields. It just takes you, it just navigates you away. So you don't want that to happen, which is why you don't want to put it here. So usually you're going to be using, usually always, you're going to go to this form control, and the form is called FRM test time. So go to the form control itself, and I go to the on success property. So on success means when the form is successfully submitted, then what do you want it to do? And then you can have it navigate, or just do whatever, take them to a screen that says thank you, or do any sort of notification across the top telling them thank you. But whatever you want to do after they submit it, you want to do it in the on success. So therefore, in the on success, let me go make sure. Yeah, I took it out of the submit button. So now I'll just do another new form. Let me reset my form too before I do a new one, just so you can see a new blank one. And that's my reset form command. Okay. Reset it, do a new one, and then I'm not going to type in my required field, and then when I try to click submit, it stays here because I'm not navigating it until after I make sure that it's successful. Does that make sense so far? Okay, so then if I put a description in here, then it's all good, and then it will submit it and then navigate me away, whatever I wanted it to do afterwards. So now with that said, let's go to a SharePoint list, and I'm just going to quickly create a new list so you can just see me doing this from scratch. So I'm going to go to whatever this is, work progress tracker template. It doesn't really, again, it doesn't matter what the list is. I'm going to go ahead and customize it in Power Apps, customize the form. This is what the form looks like by default, and I'm going to customize it in Power Apps so that we can build these buttons. So I'm customizing forms, and this will take a second for it to spin up the Power App. So let me look over and see what we got going on. Any questions so far while it's generating? I know I kind of went quickly through that part, but that was just kind of getting some basics out of the way to make sure we're all level set. Zach, I'm glad you made it. Okay, so my form, by default, it doesn't put much on here, so I can add some other fields to it just so there's a little bit more to look at here. Okay, and then another thing I like to do just in when I'm doing these customized list forms is I like to give it like a different orientation to make it take up more real estate on the page like that. So, that way you could rearrange your fields and make them have different columns and things like that. So, all right. So here's my form. And then what I want to do is add those two buttons. So I'm going to go ahead and one thing you can do, if you have a form that scrolls, that people are going to be scrolling down, kind of a habit I like to get in is to go to just whatever the last card is on that form and actually put the buttons in that card so that your buttons aren't just sort of floating on top of your form. So when people scroll, the buttons actually are scrolling. So I'll go ahead and go into this card and insert a button. Another button. And that's going to be my save and my save and new. Okay, so let's look at what happens just by default with a customized list form. Notice that this form didn't even have any buttons on it. It just by default, it works fine without any buttons, just as a customized list form in SharePoint, because it's got the little built-in buttons. It's got the little built-in save and cancel, those buttons at the top of the form. So it works fine without any buttons being added to it. But what I'm going to do is I want this one to kind of just do the same thing that built-in one is going to do. And this is one that's going to have the special functionality. But let's look at what happens automatically by default with a customized list form. When you go to SharePoint integration, this little object on the left side, you're not going to see anything on the properties by default. When you go to advanced, that's where you're going to see all these little built-in settings. So this is something that doesn't exist when you have a standalone Power App like the one I previously showed you. So this tells you these are based on that SharePoint functionality that's built in. So the on new, that's the new button in the SharePoint list. The on edit, that's when someone clicks edit button in the SharePoint list to open up this item. On view is when they just click to look at it. On save, that's that little default save button at the top in SharePoint. And on cancel, that's the cancel button. So these are all correlated with those buttons. Let me move this out of the way. Okay. So what I want to do is let's see what it does automatically. So I mentioned that that you don't want to do something right after you're doing the submit form. So notice that their built-in save button does the submit form action. And then, well, how does the form go away after someone has clicked save? Because when you're in, a SharePoint list filling out a form in a Power App and you click save, the form goes away, and then you're just looking at the SharePoint list again. So the trick is to go see what they're doing out of the box with the on success. So the on success is where that magic happens that makes the form go away. So it's doing that. This is that reset form command that I mentioned a few minutes ago. So it's always resetting the form. And then request hide, that is special just for customized list forms, and that hides the form. That's what's going to move it away to the side. So this is important to know because when you're in a SharePoint list that's customized with Power Apps, when you click the new button or when you're opening an item in there, you're not running like the usual on start that you have with a standalone Canvas app. The app is already open. So a lot of the times when we're defining things that we want to happen on start in a Power App and we put them in the on start, when you're dealing with a customized list form, the on start happens as soon as someone goes to the SharePoint list. They haven't even opened a form or clicked new or anything. So the app is opening behind the scenes. It's hidden in the SharePoint list. So that's why that control is called request hide, because when someone's filling out the form and they're done, the Power App is still open, it's still running, it's just hiding. So it's not going from screen to screen, it's not running the on start. You can't necessarily rely on the on visible. So you have to kind of understand that these built-in functionalities and this request hide thing, that's what's drastically different. So that's why I wanted to show you that basic form submit functionality in the Canvas app before kind of getting into all this built-in weirdness with a customized list form. So what we have to do, what was that?
A good question. If they did a customized list form and say they had external users that didn't have licenses, would they be able to access that form?
No.
Carolyn asked, is this useful for when your users don't have licenses to Power Apps?
No.
So
and
the answer would be
Jill, remember, and Zach remembers because he was here, I did a Power Hour about external users in Power Apps. And we actually did that live in the Power Hour, and Zach let me use his email address, and I invited him into my tenant and shared a standalone Power App with him, and then also did it in a SharePoint list. And he was able to use the form, but he was using his Microsoft 365 account from his tenant where he's already licensed for Power Apps in his tenant. So if it's somebody that's like a Gmail address or somebody that's not a Microsoft 365 email, you actually have to apply your own licenses for them to be able to use it. So, yeah. All right, so our save button is just going to do the same thing that the built-in save button is going to do. So if I go to save, I just want it to submit the form. Submit form. I am going to add a couple things in here, but see, my form is called SharePoint Form 1. And I can tell that because I can see it's called that here. So I'm going to submit the form. Now, it's going to submit the form, and as soon as it submits it, it's going to the on success. So what I have to do is I still need to make sure that the form is successfully submitted. So I can't just say submit form, new form. That's kind of like what you'd think would be the easiest way to do this. I can't say submit form, new form because they might not have filled out required fields. It might not have been successful. So what I'm doing before I do the new form, I have to make sure that the form is successful. So therefore I'm going to go to the on success. But I do need this button to do something slightly different. So I'm going to create a variable, and I'm going to call it just something really obvious, var save and new. I'm going to say true. It's just going to be a Boolean, and then submit form. So it's going to set a variable, so then I've got this variable saved that's going to know if that one is one that needs to go ahead and open up a new form, so that once the form is successful, then it will know whether or not to create a new form. So then I go ahead and go to the on success. I select this form control and go to the on success. So this is what it has in here by default. Now I do want it to reset the form. So I do want it to reset the form either way. That just clears out all the fields and starts over. So I'm going to leave that in there and let it do that first. But then I'm going to say if var save and new. Now, since this is a Boolean variable, it inherently just equals true or false, then I don't need to say if var save and new equals true, because the value of the variable is going to be true in this case. So if var save and new, then new form, and then that's that same form. Otherwise, request hide, and there we go. Okay, so this is the magic that gives that button a different functionality, is that it's setting a variable, and then therefore when the form is successfully submitted, then it's looking at that variable. Now there are a couple of other things to do. If I just leave this like it is, I'll just, you know what, I'm just gonna go ahead and save it and publish it now, and then show you a couple of things that I haven't done yet that I still need to add to make this work correctly. So I'll go ahead and just say back to SharePoint, save and publish. Okay, so I'm going to notice that it still has my SharePoint form because it's going to need refreshing once or twice before I can get to this Power App. There we go. And another thing that I'm going to add is that it's really frustrating when you're dealing with a customized list form, because after you've made changes and edited your form and then you open up here, sometimes you're testing it and you don't realize that this form hasn't refreshed and it isn't the one that you just edited and published. So another little tip that you can do is to add just a little number down at the bottom, or just something that you change so you can visually be able to tell that that's got the changes that you just did. And I'll do that in a second. Okay, so I'll do test, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not going to spend a bunch of time filling out fields, but I'll go ahead and click save. And then there's my item. Go ahead and do another new one. Save and new. Okay, so then see it cleared out the form. And then I've got another thing, and I can do save and new, and then I can keep filling out the form. But then if I click save, see, this is the problem. This is what I haven't finished doing yet. I click save, and the variable is still set to true. So I have to have a place or two in here where I set the variable back to false so that it will make sure that, you know, it's not always going to think that it's a save and new. After I've done it once, you don't want it to perpetually think that it's supposed to be save and new. So let's go back to edit it. That integrate button still throws me off. I still keep wanting to look for the Power Apps button. Oh yeah, Pamela, good, yeah. What did Carolyn say that she was profoundly disappointed about? Hopefully it was something that exists in the product and not something I did.
I think she's talking about the not being able to access maybe from external users.
Oh yeah. Okay. So this is that little trick I was talking about. I'll just do that real quick. So I'll put a label and I'll just put it down here and just type a 2 in it, because this is my second version. The next time I edit, I'll just change it to 3, just manually change it to 3, just so I can tell what's going on. Okay, on the save button, I'm going to go ahead and just, before I submit the form, set my variable, my var save and new, to false. Okay, and then also, there's that other place. People could be clicking the save button at the very top of the form, right? So we can't forget about that one. So we go to this SharePoint integration setting, and then we have this on save down here. So we want to do the same thing down here. Well, let me just pull it up over here. There's a little shortcut. I don't know if y'all know this. When you click the actual words over here on the right, it jumps straight to that formula up here in the formula bar. It's a nice little quick tip. Set var save and new to false. Okay, and then I don't know if I can stretch this one to an hour. We'll see. Okay, I'll go back to SharePoint, save and publish. Oh yeah, I did. I have a whole other, I forgot. I have a whole other part of the demo that I put together. Okay. And then when I go new, let's see if it's got my new version of the form first. Come on, Power Apps. Okay, it says 3. All right, that's good. I'll add another item. Category, progress, priority, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I'm gonna save that one. It's fine. Go 5. Save and new. Save and new. 7. I misspelled 6. And then do save. And look at that. And that worked. And then the save button would do the same thing, since I have the save button also resetting that variable back to false. Yay. Okay. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. So those were all the different spots where I had to go, you know, make a few little tweaks in that customized list form. Yep. All right, so now I've got my Power App here that I was looking at a few minutes ago when I added this little screen down here. And I want to show you in my task list screen. Now, you might be a little overwhelmed by this screen, but I put a link in case you're wondering what all this amazing coolness is. I put a link in the resources little section I put on the post tab in Teams with a link to the Power Hour that was about this. It was called Power Apps Conditional Formatting Galleries. So the conditional formatting has nothing to do with what I'm about to show you, but anyway, this is the nice little pretty gallery that we're going to be using. Okay, so right now I have this new task and the form pops out on the right, and I can open an existing one and the form pops out on the right. And again, I built this in another Power Hour. But what I want to do is, and this is a standalone Canvas app. This is not a customized list form. So I'm going to add the save and new concept to this form that I've already created. So it helps when you're doing when you're working in a Power App to go ahead and do something in preview mode that will open up the screen that you need to see. So like fill out the new, as if you're filling out a new task, and then go back out of preview so that then you have the form pulled up. Because other than that, you're kind of flying blind and you're working on something that isn't even showing on the screen. So let's look at my save button here. And it helps. I don't necessarily do this all the time in demos because I'm kind of going quickly, but it helps to give these better names, like btn save task. And then I can add another button in here. And notice that I put this button, I didn't put this button inside of the form control. It's just kind of floating above it. And so if this form had more fields in it and you needed to scroll down it, the button would just stay in this one spot. It wouldn't scroll with the form. So that's kind of the concept that I was pointing out a minute ago. Okay, so let's go ahead and insert a new label, and I'll just, not a label, sorry, a button. And I'll just put it here, and I'll say save and new. And then this save button, it actually has some special functionality, because in this case, because it's a Canvas app, I have the end users only going to the app and they're not going to SharePoint. They're not interacting in the SharePoint list, and everything they're doing is they're looking at the list of items here in the Power App. They're looking at the form in the Power App. So this is how they're getting around in everything. So that's kind of my favorite way of building Power Apps, is to not have the users go to SharePoint at all and only just do every Power App as a standalone Canvas app. So that's the idea here, is that they're just clicking on a task. And since a task is sort of a short form, we just put it right there on the same screen. Now, this is going to vary because a lot of apps have really big forms. So when you click the new form button, you've got a whole screen that's just for the new form. So for example, I've got, like, for my projects, this is my project screen. So when they are filling out a new form, the form is the whole screen. So that's why I wanted to point out to you the concept of the on success, because however you built your Power App, if the form is just popping up, or if it's just static next to a list of something, or if the form is by itself on its own screen, it's important to understand the principles in making sure that it's whatever you're doing in the on success is really going to be the thing that makes the difference. And you might have all of you might have completely different things that you want to happen on success. You might, like I mentioned, you might want to navigate, you might want to do a notify, you might have some sort of pop-up that says thank you. So there are a lot of different ways that people have a sort of success concept in their forms. So let's go back to the task list. I like this one. It's kind of pretty because it's just nice and concise and just pops up on the side. But because it pops up on the side, this is what I was getting at, I've got, again, it's just a submit form on the already existing save button. But when I select my form, my FRM task, and I go to the on success, this is when it's successful, it's hiding the form. So I'm submitting the form, and then its on success is just that the form goes away. So I could do something like a really nice, easy one is called notify. Thanks for submitting. And they have little color codes you can do if you want. So if I XYZ, just another concept of what you can do in the on success, and then save that. See, thanks for submitting. So you can put dynamic data in there, whatever you want to do. So now that's what the on success is already doing. So I need to go ahead and add that variable. So I'm creating variables. So on select, I want it to submit the form. I'm just going to copy that and set the variable. But I'm going to set the variable first. Set var save and new to true. And then submit the form. Okay, and then in the on success, in addition to making the form go away and having a little notification, then that's where we need to do that additional thing that looks to see if that variable is equal to true. So it's always going to do these two things. Now, if you don't want it to, well, hold on. Let me just start writing my if statement. If, and then that's my var save and new that I just created. That's a Boolean. If var save and new, then I'm going to do a new form of, and that form is called FRM task. Otherwise, the form is going, the pop-up is going to go away and they're going to be notified. Now, if I want them to be notified no matter what, I can just take that notify out of there and just put it before the if statement. So it's always going to tell them thank you for submitting. But that might be kind of annoying if people are filling out a bunch of forms and this thing keeps coming across the top. So, you know, it's kind of up to you if you want that to happen. Okay, let's try this out. Let's see, what do I have that, hold on, what do I have that little What is this error? Oh, look at that. If var save a new. Oh, I didn't put, look at that. I didn't put my semicolon. That's what the problem was. Okay, I thought I saw an error there. I want to make sure I caught that. Okay, new task. Okay, and then do save a new. Okay, so see, that's kind of annoying to have the thanks for submitting showing, but at least it's letting me know that it has gone in. So thanks for submitting, and then I can do another one and waiting on someone, priority, and then save a new, and yet another. I'll do one more. But what I didn't do, I better do this before I try and click save. What I didn't do is set the variable to false, right? Because that's the additional step. You want to make sure that it sets it back to false so that it doesn't just always stay true once someone has submitted the form. Click save and new. So var save and new to false. All right. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. Let's see. Anything groundbreaking going on?
No, I think some people might be having issues seeing the chat. I don't know if there's just something going on with Teams today.
Oh, yeah, I think there is. There is a little refresh button in Teams. I don't know if that's going to make a difference, but I do think that something is going on in Teams, like, because right before we got started, the tabs were just shifting around before my very eyes. So, yeah, I have no control over that. But, I think, yeah, I mean, that covers just all the concepts in the customized list form versus the Canvas app. And then, when I was building this demo, it made me think of the concept of save and copy, or basically taking something that exists and doing copy and new. Is that something that you've ever had people need? Oh, look, another thing that I did is I forgot to put the on visible. I forgot to change the visible property to have the same one as the other one. So Joella, do you ever have a project that you're working on where people need to have take existing things and just quickly be able to copy them?
Not recently, but I think I have in the past, sure.
So I was trying to think through, maybe that potentially being something that I could add on, but then it depends on, if people have that functionality, it depends on where they want to be when they click the button. Do you want to have to go open an existing item and then click a button that says copy this to create a new one? So I kind of got stuck on, it being, the functionality would vary greatly depending on how people wanted to go about that. What do you all think? So Kimberly, though, so she says that would be great, but the copy to new, but do you want people to have to go open an existing item, the item that they want to copy to new, and then click a button that says to copy it, and then it just pulls up a new form that's got all the fields filled out just like the old one? Is that where they would expect to go to be able to do that? Because, I mean, I can kind of show you some concepts and how that could be accomplished, but I just kind of want to make sure that I'm addressing like the most common place people would expect to be able to do that. Like this task, would I want a button just here on the row of the task that says copy to new, and then a new form pops up? Or anyway, so I can go ahead and try that since we've got 20 minutes left. Okay, so I've got some projects. So this is my main list of projects. And when I click on a project, it actually just goes to a completely different screen. And I have a new project button too. But do I want to, I'll go ahead and just add a button next to each project so that I can quickly take everything that's in that project and it'll take me to a new form, but it'll have it pre-populated with stuff about that project. Does that sound like a common ask? Okay, so this is the part of Power Hour towards the end where I just kind of make something up and I don't know what's going to happen because I didn't pre-plan it. Okay, so let's go to this gallery and I'll add a new button. I'll just do like a little copy button. Let me see. I like searching over here for the right icon there. Just put a copy button. And then when I click that button, that's going to take that project and take me directly to a new form filled out with all the data from that project. Okay, so on select, I'm going to do a variable, var. Now I think I actually already have a variable of the record of the project itself. So let me see what that is real quick. Var selected record, yeah. So I can just use my var selected record anyway, because what I'm doing is I'm just taking this whole record, the entire form in SharePoint, and I'm just setting that entire thing into a variable. So it's going to set the variable, and then it's going to do a new form. And where is it navigating for these other ones? It's going to SCR project form. Okay. So new form FRM projects, navigate to SCR project form. Yeah, let me make sure that's the right project form, because this is an app that I've got a whole bunch of different forms and things going on in here, so I want to just make sure I'm going to the right one. FRM projects, yep, okay. Okay, so it's setting the variable, doing the new form command, and navigating, but I also need to have an additional variable. I need to know if I'm currently copying something to new. So I'll say set var copy to new true. All right, so I'm going to take this second one right here and okay, so I didn't do a reset form, so let me go back one, because I think what it did was it didn't necessarily run the thing that I clicked on. It ran the on select for the whole row. So var copy to new true, and yeah, I need to do a reset form. Reset form. I'm just kind of cramming all this in here, huh? It looks much nicer when you do format text, and it makes it nice and neat like that. Okay. So let me try that again. Let me get rid of I think it's just doing the on select for the whole gallery when I'm doing that. See? It's not letting me do just that one button. So I'm going to take this whole thing and just comment it out for now. And yeah, it's taking me to that item, but it's not sending a new form command. What form am I on? Hold on. It might be the wrong form. Oh yeah, FRM projects print is the one that it's taking me to. Okay, so I have to be resetting the correct form. So it's taking me to FRM projects print, but like I said, I've got a whole bunch of different project forms in this app because it's a demo app. Okay, so FRM projects print. I was just resetting the wrong form. Okay. Reset form projects print. And this is actually one that I did. I did a power hour probably a couple months ago about that print function. So that's kind of what that was, is working on the print, taking a look at what you could do with the Power Apps print function. Okay. All right, so this is a new form. So I've told it to set a variable, and I've told it that I am going to be doing a new form, but I haven't filled in the form yet. So that's going to be very time consuming. Let me show you what that's going to entail. So the project name, so every field you're going to have to tell it what data it needs to have in it by default. Now the project name, you might want to leave that empty and not mess with that, because you might want people to have to type a new project name for each time they do this copy to new concept. So we could just leave that one alone and not not mess with that one. But let me go ahead and just go to a really simple one like hours planned, and I'll go to the default property of this card. And by default, when you're on a form control, this is just got this property, this item.hours planned. But what we're going to have to do in order to make it pre-populate with something from the thing that we clicked on to copy to new is that we're going to have to put a if statement in here. If var copy to new, var copy to new. If I am copying something to new, then I want this box to equal var selected record dot, and then this one is my hours planned. Otherwise, just do what you're already going to do and show this item dot hours planned. Okay, so look at that. So you understand this concept? So if, let me shrink this down a little bit. If var copy to new, I'm going to delve into that variable that I just set and go find the hours planned field and default this box to the hours planned field that I just click copy to new next to. Otherwise, just leave kind of what was already listed here. So that's what you have to do for every field. So let me go to the project start. And I can copy this, but it's going to be very, very different for every field. It's just going to be a lot of work. But it's still probably less work than people have to do filling a big form out multiple times and having a bunch of the same data in it. So I'm going to put this down on a notch. Var selected record dot, and that's project start. Otherwise, this item.project start. So you can see it says 5/1/2020 now. All right, so that's going to be very tedious. It's going to be a matter of going through all these different fields and doing that on each one. And it's going to be a more complex syntax for the complex types of fields. So if you have a choice field, a people picker, or a lookup, you have to write that big, long, ugly, weird syntax inside of each of these to be able to have it pre-populate correctly. What do y'all think about this so far? Does that make sense? So Kimberly, the trick to that is, so when you are in an edit form, when you're editing an existing item, there's actually a field, a property of your form control called item. And so when you're clicking, like in this case, when I'm clicking on an existing project in a gallery and it's taking me to an existing item and I'm editing it, it's obviously it's got all the fields filled in because I'm editing an existing item. So item being that variable does exist as a concept. But the problem is when you send that is only with an edit form. When you're using the new form command, it's always going to be a blank new item, and you can't populate it with something in the item property and have all the fields be showing. So a sort of another way that you could go about doing the copy to new you probably wouldn't want to do this, but if you have people click copy to new and it actually patches to SharePoint behind the scenes and creates the item and copies the current item and patches to create a new one, and then it takes you to an edit form of the new item it just created, then that would be a way to get around having to go to each field and do this. But I'm thinking in the real world that you wouldn't want to have that item just get created without the person necessarily like tweaking it and clicking save and doing all that. So that would be one way to do it that would be faster when it comes to filling out all the fields, but you probably won't want to. So I'll go try and do one of these, like project type. I'm going to unlock that and go to the default. And let's see, if var copy to new, and just like I did with the var save in new, you're going to have to set that back to false. So just make sure that if somebody's just clicking on an item, or they're going back to the home page, or they're starting a new form or something, you're just going to have to make sure and set that back to false at some point, so that this form always doesn't perpetually think that it's doing this copy to new concept in that session of the person using it. Okay, so if var copy to new, now since this one is a complex field, I can't just do straight up, the value of whatever it is. And the project type is a complex field. I'll show you, it'll give me an error when I do that. That doesn't seem right, because it usually has to have that little value thing. Now maybe if Microsoft fixed this, yeah, no, see, it's going to look like it's showing the project type, but if you try to save it, the value that it's trying to save, it's not going to be in the right, when you click the submit button, it's not going to be in the right format, so you'd get an error. So that looked like it worked, but you have to do the curly brackets. So it's going to be value colon var selected project type. And I think the capitalization makes a difference. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so that's what it looks like for, I did 3 of them so far: hours plan, project start, and project type. And then again, you just have to you do that on every single field, which I'm not going to do. What do y'all think? I think I keep having to click refresh to get Teams to understand, to show me all the... Okay. Any last questions? I can wrap up 7 minutes early. It's fine. Okay, cool. If you ever want to know when the next Power Hour is, we have a schedule here at iwmentor.com. And here's today's Power Hour. Next week, we're not having Power Hour because we're having our interactive online course. So this is 3 days of advanced Power Apps and 2 days of advanced Power Automate. And so we're going to be busy doing that all week, but check that out if you'd like to get this advanced training. And interactive, what does that mean? It's not a full live online class, like me talking with you the whole time to the live students online. Interactive means that all the students are going through the same modules in this online training. It is pre-recorded online training, and all the students are going through the same modules each day. But we're having just 2 Q&As each day of, just the labs they went through and the modules that they went through and just any questions that they have. It's pre-recorded. So the interactive part is the part that everybody stays together and you're doing the same thing, and you all get to meet with me and ask questions just multiple times during the week. So that's what that means. All right. Well, I think I'm going to wrap it up. And thanks everybody for the lively questions this time. And I don't know what the deal is with Teams. It was being a little weird, but you never know. Thanks, Joelle.
Thanks, Laura.
We'll see you all next time, which will be September 29th. Have a good afternoon.
Sounds good. Have a good one, everybody.